So James, I'm back again. Sam's MIA still.
Welcome back. Can't say I miss him. It's been good. Round
It's been
two.
good down here. It has.
Now, mate, this week we've got a whole bunch packed into this episode of Unrolled. We've got first cab off the rank, the FJ40. Everybody had a lot of good things to say about the bits we've put up so far, so we thought we'd give them a bit of a really in-depth sort of nuts and bolts look at the FJ. Straight after that, mate, we're back on the 300ZX. Now, our viewers don't know yet. We had some dramas. They probably have an inkling of an idea. We had some dramas. This week, we dive deeper into that and work out exactly what's going on there.
What could go wrong? Boost plus wrecker motor.
God only knows,
Who
mate.
knows?
We know. And the third and final thing, our videographer Sandy was at GDR Festival, as we saw last week. He found some motivation for the first time in his life, and he's getting cracking on his RB20.
On the RB,
so we're going to see that.
Our favourite motor, which we did pay him out about last week.
We did a little bit.
Maybe let's see if he can redeem himself and the motor.
Maybe he's trying to prove something.
So FJ, it's been a labour of love. I think it's been here 2.5 years.
Yeah, about that.
It has really pushed us to the limit of our patience, fair to say. And probably the level to which we're building it is pretty insane for a car that in theory should go off-road.
Yeah. They're meant to be farm trucks. They're not meant to look how this one looks. But it's getting close, mate. It's getting really close. And you know yourself, nothing ever goes together how you think.
Correct.
Ever. Doesn't matter. Ever.
A couple of dudes in a shed, you can understand why it's taken 2.5 years. And the level of perfection that's been achieved is mind-blowing for a 40-year-old farm truck.
100%. Let's have a look. So you may have seen on Instagram lately, our FJ40's cab has just gone off to paint and panel down the road at Berliner Bodyworks. And it seems like a fantastic opportunity to formally introduce you guys to the FJ40 as it appears here and show you some of the intricacies that you don't normally get to see in our Instagram posts. So I'm going to walk you through some of the more interesting points of the vehicle. The whole thing started off as a farm truck that was a little bit worse for wear. We stripped this thing apart, which was a feat in itself. It was riddled with spiders. Even after we sandblasted and powder coated the chassis, we still had spiders coming out of it somehow. Obviously, the engine is not anything that came in an FJ40 as standard. This is an LS1. It is 6.3 litres in capacity now. It's 383 for you Yanks. It's got LS3 cylinder heads. We went with the LS3 cylinder heads purely so we could fit the fantastic Edelbrock dual planar manifold on top here, because if there's one thing an LS is, it's ugly to look at. And this has certainly rectified it. This kind of started a whole snowball effect with the motor itself, as we wanted to have these high-rise sort of hand-fabricated rocker covers for it as well, but they hit the Edelbrock manifold, so what we ended up having to do is cut off the coil pack mounts on the side of the manifolds, cut the top off the rocker covers, and get spread Cheese Fab to weld a 45-degree plate across there so they would actually sit down properly and not interfere with each other. Another knock-on effect of that is we lost the oil fill point, and so we decided to try and do something interesting and create a large central fill point to the valley plate on the LS. One of the challenges then was that the Edelbrock manifold has the fuel rails on the inside of the valley rather than the outside like they normally are, which meant that making a neck for the filler for spread Cheese Fab was quite a challenge, as we had to not only create the neck but create sort of a notch in the back of it for the fuel rails to sit into. It's very difficult to kind of assemble, but once it's together it looks fantastic. Once we had our engine assembled as we liked it, then came to fitting it with its transmission onto the FJ chassis. Now for a gearbox, we went with Toyota's R151F Toyota Surf gearbox. Make sure you leave your negative comments about that down below in the comments. Sucks. The reason we went for that is it has the correct offset transfer case, as we are retaining standard front and rear FJ40 differentials, although they do have true tracks in them now, front and rear. So I wanted a dual offset transfer case. I wanted something that I could buy an off-the-shelf bell housing adapter from Castlemaine Rod Shop. So the R151F shares a bell housing pattern with the R154 Superbox, which meant I could buy an off-the-shelf solution. We actually found out the hard way as well. There are 2 different input shaft sizes on that generation of gearbox. So we also had to get a surprise about 1 inch spacer of Castlemaine Rod Shop the day we tried to fit them together. But other than that, it went together fantastically. Another requisite of the gearbox was we wanted it to have a 2-wheel drive option as well. So we didn't want permanent 4-wheel drive. We want to be able to put this thing in rear-wheel drive. And the R151F caters to that. Another fantastic thing about it is the range selection is in a straight line, which means that the linkage to move the range selector forward into the cabin of the FJ was really easy to make. It only has to move on one plane. We had some CAD designers that we work near here design up a range selector for us that moves the selector position a long way forward, as it's quite a far away from the hole in the floor of the cab. We had custom engine mounts and a custom gearbox mount made up by Spread Cheese Fab again, and we also notched the firewall. As a few of you have noted, you can get away with not doing that. The reason we did that was, one, it gave us a fantastic alcove to now mount our coil packs in where you can't see them behind the motor. And it also meant that with the engine that far back, we could have optimal sump clearance without sacrificing oil capacity, which is an important thing. The next thing we added that was a bit of a challenge was air conditioning. Now, air conditioning in itself isn't too much of a challenge, but one of the biggest troubles we had, or one of the biggest hurdles rather, was the Edelbrock dual planar manifold has the 2 throttle bodies pointing right where you want to put the AC compressor idler pulley. So we've relocated them, as you can see, and we now have them operating off a bell crank that's mounted off the water pump. It's got a lovely stainless bracket that holds it. Uses an FJ45 standard throttle cable, which is a big plus. I think it looks fantastic, but it was certainly a sort of interesting thing to overcome. The radiator is a PWR radiator for the FJ45 Land Cruiser. However, we have had the necks sizes changed to be the same diameter as the water pump inlet and outlet on the LS. We also have a steam pipe going to the top tank, as per the installation on the Commodores as well. We also have an airflow overflow mounted on the side there, and you'll spot the winch control box here for our DriveTech 4x4 winch, which is mounted to this front bar that looks like a standard front bar. However, this is fabricated out of steel by one of Sam Young's good mates. It's made to accommodate mounting of a winch neatly like this. One thing we didn't want is a horrible ugly winch sitting up high in front of the rather good looking front of the FJ40. We've painted this in body color, as normally they're a bright red, but we wanted to keep it really subtle on this. So now with our engine, our gearbox and our basics all sorted on the vehicle, we now turned our attention to the wiring. We got a LS wiring loom from Mark's 4x4. They do a whole bunch of stuff for this conversion and conversions like it, so they're a fantastic source of parts. And we have a standard LS1 computer. Can't remember what Commodore it came from, but the good news is these are all infinitely tunable and actually quite a flexible ECU. It all plugs straight in, which is amazing. More interestingly, the car is going to have electric power steering from Easy Steering. We actually got that from the Netherlands. It was pretty price effective. It's a way better solution to the old hydraulic system that these came with. While the steering linkages and box are all still FJ40, although they've all been refurbished or replaced, the electric rack is actually made for this application. It's a beautiful piece of work, and you'll see more of that when we assemble the car and the cab. Now the suspension in this is all still FJ45, as you can see, and part of the motivation behind this is we really wanted this to remain an FJ45. We didn't want it to be an 80 series underneath or anything like that. There's a certain appeal to keeping this as intended in that respect and not kind of bastardizing it too much. I know it's got an LS1 in it. It's got 4-wheel disc brakes now. They came with a variety of options, I think. I think some of them actually had discs as standard. This one had 4-wheel drums, which were rubbish even for 1979. It has 80 series brakes on the front now, and on the back it's got a strange concoction. I can't remember what the disc is from off the top of my head, but the caliper is actually a Tirana caliper. It has the handbrake mechanism built into it, as we are utilizing the FJ's standard handbrake lever with some one-off cables to the Tirana calipers. So a really neat solution to that problem, as this normally has a drum on the back of the gearbox and we no longer have space for that. With the fuel system in the car, space is really limited with the FJ45 chassis. The tank sits under the seats, under the cab, and there's not really much space for it to go anywhere else. So we actually modified the top of the tank to accept a phantom EFI conversion in-tank pump and filter unit. It makes any swap like this a breeze. And we had the tank red coated as well, just to prevent any sort of rust or corrosion in the future of the vehicle. So we're looking forward to getting the cab back. We're going to show you guys a bunch of progress on that as it happens. And obviously once it's back, we'll show you some of the more intricate details on that have occurred to make this entire project come together smoothly. So stay tuned for that and more content on our FJ45 V8.
We've gone from a spare no expense FJ build to a spare all the expense, well, most of the expense Z race car.
It was a little bit budget.
It was a little bit budget. And it's probably come back to bite us. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's come back to bitness. Jesus. It's come back to bite us, English. It is my first language, I promise. It's come back to bite us, but you know, these things are very often opportunities to go bigger and better.
Yeah. Well, let's tear this thing down. Let's get the prognosis.
That's exactly what happened. Let's have a look. So we're back here with our VG30 from our 300ZX, and last time you guys saw this thing, it was a complete engine. As you can see, it is completely dismantled now, and I'm just getting it ready to be sent off to the machinist. So big things coming in the pipeline for this motor, but I do want to hear from you guys as to what you think we should be doing. We have a couple of options, of course. First and foremost, grab another wrecker engine in, lob it in the car, go have some fun and see what happens to that one. 2, just give this engine a refresh, bit of a birthday, nothing serious. Or 3, my preference, I reckon we go whole hog, forged internals and build something that's gonna, you know, future-proof the car. And if we ever want to turn the wick up, which we definitely don't need to, we can. So let us know in the comments what you think we should be doing, and we'll see what the most popular option is. Obviously, when you pull apart a motor looking for a failure point somewhere, like in our case, a spun big end bearing. Don't know if you guys can see it here, but it's a spun bearing. Thankfully, the knock sensor picked up on it very quickly, and Andy did as well. And he turned the car off and saved us from any sort of real damage. The struggle with diagnosing an issue with an engine is quite often you'll have something like that, which is a symptom, and you have to find a cause, not other symptoms. So a good example of this might be a spun bearing here, and you might find heavy scoring on the bores. And it would be very easy to say to yourself, okay, well, this is a failure due to debris. But you need to consider things like location of the fault. So as an example, the bearing's location in relation to the oil pump. If it's an oil starvation issue, you'll see scoring on the oil pump itself. So it's always worth pulling that apart. If you don't take these measures, it's very easy to put together an engine and then have the same thing occur. So make sure you chase everything and work out the root cause. If you had a spun bearing, you pulled apart the oil pump and there was no scoring in the oil pump, you could probably drill it down to not being a lubrication issue. So you have to consider the location of the fault, the nature of the fault, be it a spun bearing,
Have a look for signs of other heat distress in parts. Quite often you'll see discoloring, that sort of thing. And scoring, of course, which is the standard one. The location of that in relationship to your primary failure will tell a whole story. So there is quite a bit involved in working out what goes wrong. Unfortunately, I think this engine was already very, very tired when we got it. The cylinder bores are very heavily glazed. The piston to bore was a huge sort of gap, and we had significant damage across all the bearings. They weren't spun, but they were very heavily used. So I kind of think this engine just had a really tough life, and us turning the wick up after 25 years of abuse was the final straw that broke the camel's back. So again, let us know in the comments what you want us to do with the Camel. Now, obviously, I want to go forged internals for a number of reasons. It's up to you guys to convince the higher ups to let me do that with this thing. But first and foremost, forged internals means we can really turn this up and create some serious power. Because obviously we had this dead standard motor, standard fibrous head gaskets, the works. Obviously the plan would be to go with something like a Cometic MLS gasket, some ACL race bearings, and forged rods, forged pistons, cams, and the like. Obviously the benefit of those don't need explaining. They're stronger, they're lighter, and all in all better for a race car. So, you know, make sure you let them know down the bottom that's what we should be doing, because I would really like to take that path. Obviously, if I have my way with our forged internals plan, once I receive those, I'm going to package those up along with our entire rotating assembly, including clutch and flywheel, crank pulley, the works, because we want to balance this properly. Obviously the machinist is going to hone our cylinders. I'd probably go one step oversized because the piston to bore clearance was quite big, and I'd like the opportunity to set that to where I want it. So we'll probably go an oversized piston. They're going to bore and hone the cylinders. They're going to check our mains for trueness. They're going to make sure that the crank is good. They'll probably linish the crank. They're also going to crack test and leak test our cylinder heads and clean everything up nicely for us. But just like we have to, you guys are going to have to hang in there and wait for it to come back just to see exactly what happens.
All right, well, yeah, no surprises there. Personally, I'm kind of excited now to open, you know, I know we're trying to get it done quicker and keep the budget under control, etc. Makes sense. But now I'm like, my vote is for we just step it up a gear. Bit fancier in terms.
I got to admit, I'm kind of on that page too. I mean, it's out, we're here.
Stuff's cheap for it, let's be honest. It's pretty cheap for a forged motor.
100%, and you know, all the stuff you need to recondition an engine, we can supply to ourselves, so...
Yeah, I'm like, why not use our parts bin? Let's go.
I think we should.
1,000 horsepower.
This car does not need any more horsepower.
I don't know, I haven't driven it in the dry, so who knows.
It doesn't.
So I think I remember this bit from last week. What's been going on? What's in the news? Or not the news, as it is?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. First cab off the rank, Hamilton's weekend.
Ooh,
he had a bit of a doozy.
I know, for those who didn't see, Verstappen was out in front, dominated the weekend, was leading. You know, I saw a few memes during the week of, you know, maybe someone was taking him down from the stands. But yeah, blew up into the wall. Back at the restart, 2 laps to go. Had his magic brake on, which warms up the front brakes, puts the bias all the way to the front. Went sailing off on turn 1 down the escape road. See you later.
So that's what happened. I just thought he forgot what track he was at.
Yeah, okay. He missed the left turn. But no, he left his magic brake on, which puts the bias all the way to the front, smoked his brakes up straight off.
Oh, we've all been there, leaving our magic brakes on.
All
right, this one.
Yes. Found this on Bring a Trailer. For those who haven't been, it's an auction site in the US. Great place to spend hours of your time with your fantasy garage. This is the legit Z from the IMSA series, I believe, in the US in the 90s.
Actually, Steve Millen's car. It is, I think, isn't it?
It is Steve Millen's car. Yeah, it is.
That's wild.
Beast. And I think it sold for like something like 550 US or something.
Imagine having the dosh to be able to buy something like that and sit it in your garage.
And run it.
So
it's pretty much like reading through it, like it did like a season, yeah, and like dominated, and then it got sold to some dude in Canada who sat on it, got sold to another dude who sat on it, and got sold to another guy who restored it and raced it in classics, and then now has just refreshed the motor and it's back up there. But I don't know if we've got any more pics there, but we should send that link around. It is awesome. And what is interesting...
We've actually just stuck this up on our Instagram, so if you do want to see more, head to our Instagram. There's a couple more shots there.
It's a phenomenal piece of engineering. I mean, really nothing close to the road car. Even the motor is alloy block, not cast block. What is interesting, I don't know if we've got a shot there, the intake plenum is exactly how you've done it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're inspired or... There it is. The 2-into-1 from the
How about that? I reckon that's just a coincidence though.
But yeah, but you can claim it, James. Claim it.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
What a beast, carbon
take it.
intakes. I mean, it's in the 90s. All these.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, there's no Z there at all, like you said. I mean, there's parts of the VG that are recognisable, but
Not much.
not much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, check it out. It's a cool car. What else we got?
Okay. The
What is that?
GR86. The GR stands for Good Riddance, I think. I mean, you might think that GR being their performance arm and
Gazoo Racing, what is this? Yeah.
Gazoo Racing, yeah. It's a great name. Couldn't have done better.
It's a very unique name. I'm not sure.
The Yaris has been a big success.
That's been
It's
awesome. I've seen a few on the road.
Yeah,
Like, anyone
I
who
like
picked
them.
one of those up for 40 grand in the initial 1,000, they nabbed a bargain.
Laughing.
Is genius. Yeah. Can't go wrong
But
with that.
that's a great little pocket rocket. Hell of a car. And you'd think that when GR got their hands on the 86, it was going to get a similar treatment, maybe forced induction, you know. But no, it's still a
NA.
slow as a wet week, NA 86.
They drive. I mean, everyone says they drive really well. Like they're well balanced cars. Yeah, I think probably most people would have wanted to see a turbo on this one. Let's be honest, right?
I expected it from GR, I
Yeah,
think.
you just
And this facelift, I don't know about the facelift. It looks
looks a bit Hyundai.
yeah,
looks a
Hyundai,
bit like
maybe a little bit of the
Kia
Aston Martin
Stinger.
in that, but not
Yeah.
not any of the nice parts. Oh, the back's very Honda, isn't it? I think Honda-ish. Not a fan.
It's got those exhausts. Well, hopefully, let's see. Let's hope it drives all right. Cut a few laps around Bath or something.
I think I liked the very first one's looks better.
yeah,
Definitely.
first one was
Definitely.
good. I like the original one.
And that's not the news.
That's not the news.
Tell you what was surprising.
What?
The Germans have skipped a week for a recall. Maybe that means we're going to get 2 next week.
Maybe.
We'll see. We've got Sandy's, that's our videographer. He's standing behind the camera now, waiting for us to rip on his motor.
Did somebody say wrecker motor? Didn't we just learn that lesson about wrecker motors like just right now?
Yeah, maybe we're going to learn it again a little bit, I think.
You know what they say? Poor man pays twice.
It is true. It is true.
It is true. 4 times.
4 times. 4 RB20s have bit the dust. What do you reckon the common denominator is, Sandy? You or the RB20s?
They're all RB20s.
And they're all wrecker motors.
But they're all owned by you.
So what's this motor going to do? What's it going to be?
I think Sandy's going to throw a couple of hot bits at it, a couple of GFB bobs,
Okay.
things
Is he
around a couple of
going
that
to
sort of thing.
open it up or just
Nah, we're
roll
not
the
going to
dice?
open it up. Just
roll the dice.
Yeah,
right.
we're going to do a Z31 and stick it in there. and see
So
what
we're
happens.
going to do all the effort and labour to get it in the car, old one out, new one in,
Yes.
and just fingers crossed. Just like Sam's motor, that was completely cooked on the.
Yes, we have a good run with wrecker engines. Yeah, look, I mean, like,
Is there a better way? I'm not sure.
I mean, I don't have to do any of the spannering on this. I just watch Sandy do it, so I
Yeah,
kind
but
of
I don't
hope
want him
it
taking
doesn't
up the
work.
hoist. He can't just be like
Oh.
camping out that thing on the hoist for like 2 hours.
That's a fair point. We don't need another Nissan in the way.
We've got a whole car park full of cars. Plus my cars are banking up. The Golf has a very weird puddle forming under the front driver's
I don't
side.
think there's anything weird about it.
It's definitely DSG fluid and it's definitely cascading out of the front. It's a nice little...
How good at DAC-TACs. But we're going to check out Sandy's Skyline because he's got a chili up his bum and he's started the project after having this engine sitting here on 2 months. So
Let's check it out.
He gets into it.
Look at this. Come on, give me.
Here we have Sandy's box motor. This thing's dropped about 9 litres of solidified, congealed jelly out of the sump. And we're about to drop the sump off. You! How stoked and excited are you?
Yeah, not. Judging by whatever the hell's in that pan.
Oh, nice. You've redeemed yourself, Sandy. Achoo!
Is it common practice to be malleting a screwdriver into your sump?
It's Nissan. They designed it that way.
Classic Datsun. I'm just glad to see that their petrol motors are as junk as their diesel motors. Yep, just this front.
Is there any bolts holding that in?
Yep. It's hard to find good help these days, people. Ooh, the pickup is yummy. And that's too thick to come out the drain plug. It just sat there. Tip it out. Tip it into this. We get the...
On the plug?
Nah, just do it outside, I reckon. Yeah. Oh my god.
It's like...
Sam Young.
We got a blowout up your end.
Oh no!
I've never seen anything worse. It reminds me of slightly runny Vegemite, actually. Wow, dude. You got some cleaning to do.
Still don't know if this one runs, actually. Well, some of you may know, this is my engine. Nah, you may not know that actually. This is my engine. I've had Nissans pretty much as long as I could drive. I'm a Datsun guy originally. I've had several Z series cars. I've got a 240 at the moment I'm restoring, but I've also had the drift cars on the side. So I've had 180s and Silvias, and at the moment my current car is an R32 Skyline. It's been fed. It has only 5 cylinders left. It chews at least 5 litres of oil a week. It's been flogged. It only just has enough turbo in it to do a skid, cut to footage. Maybe don't, I don't know, cut to footage if you want to, I really don't. But this one's gonna be a hot motor. We've got turbos going on, we've got injectors coming in, there's external wastegates, full exhaust, front mounts, we've got the whole kit and caboodle for it. So the next couple episodes of Unrolled, we're hoping to have this thing up, tuned and doing burnouts sooner than ever, bigger than ever. Here's a good one though. We just did the intro to this piece, and as you can see, I've painted the rocker covers nice and wrinkle red. They've already got oil on them. Already. Hasn't even been less than 4 hours, and it's leaking oil. Nice. At the moment, we've got the timing belt done, all the pulleys underneath, and we've got the block painted, all new exhaust studs in there. I'm working on the manifolds. There was a crack that I had to get welded up, thanks James. And I'm gonna tackle the thermostat today, I think. There's a couple little tricks and things to getting a thermostat on, but this one's relatively simple, especially with the motor out of the car. So let's get cracking.
That Skyline was not what I was expecting, mate. Like, I know Sandy's a bit of a grub, but mate, that Skyline needs more than a new motor. That needs some proper TLC, a bit of elbow grease.
Yeah. Well,
That's
like I said, what could go wrong with that motor? I'm sure it's been loved. During the church on Sundays only.
That's what people do with their R32s, right, Sandy?
Exactly.
Do we have that? Do we have that footage? The bloke Sandy bought it off. It may or may not have cams in it, were his words. It runs rough. It's lumpy, I think. He said it was lumpy, so it might have cams. Could be stuffed, but it might have cams.
It might have cams. Look on the positive side.
He also said he hadn't opened it up. The sump had never been off, so it may be built. He doesn't know.
It could be anything at this stage.
I mean, like, I could be the Messiah. I don't know.
Exactly.
So Schrodinger's
Anyway,
cat
good luck.
sort of deal
Good
there.
luck. Good luck with that. Let's see how that works out.
Yeah, definitely a maybe built RB20 with cams in it.
Well, we're getting a lot of cars out the door. Probably, I don't know, is it something to do with Sam not being here?
It could be, mate.
Could well be distracting everyone. But cool cars are coming out. We're getting to the pointy end of a lot of our builds. Really excited. Stay tuned and see how they turn out.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week for all that. Remember to comment below what you want to see happen to our 300ZX. And always remember to like, share and subscribe to our channel for more awesome automotive content every week.
Catch you then.